World of Warcraft's 6th expansion pack is about to be announced at Gamescom 2015. After all of the design changes that went on during Warlords of Draenor, here is what I would like to see in the next expansion. Number 20. First up, we've got leveling. I would love the next expansion's leveling to take cues from the Wrath of the Lich King and Warlords of Draenor way of doing things. Wrath was more explorative, it had better lore, more memorable and varied hubs, locations and things like that, and it also had a better fleshed out world, and overall was paced to have more of an RPG feel. Warlords of Draenor felt a bit like a Call of Duty campaign. It was short and it was full of set pieces. It also brought the excellent treasure system. So I essentially think that doing things in the Wrath of the Lich King style, but with the Warlords of Draenor treasures, rares, voice acting, and cinematics, would be a great return to the RPG basics that all MMOs should probably be grounded in. Oh, and group quests and real challenge, please. Number 19. Next, I would like a larger world, and this does hark back to Wrath, but it had more leveling zones than Warlords of Draenor, as have quite a few past expansions. At nearly every level bracket of Wrath, you had a choice between zones. This was great for making the place feel really, really large, and less of a sort of linear progression. It allowed for choice, agency, and it meant that going back through the leveling content on alts meant you actually got to see new stuff. It also left more room for world building and storytelling, which I think was quite well used. Number 18. Next, let's cover dungeons. They stopped doing winged dungeons after Wrath of the Lich King, and I would love it if they returned to that formula. When you get down to it, what matters the most is gameplay. It does matter more than visuals, and having more dungeons allows for more gameplay. You can have more bosses, and in general, a lot less repetition. The art of the likes of, say, Auchindoun and Shadowmoon Burial Grounds is really fantastic, and I don't think people would mind seeing 1 or 2 dungeons that would share one of those aesthetics, provided they had a bit of a different twist and some unique and fun boss encounters. Number 17. Next, let's quickly mention Garrisons. Simply put, I think they were a failed experiment. I would like a focus on world content with lots of large hubs, each one having unique art, not just a copy-paste of a few garrison buildings again and again and again. We have seen that Dwarven bunker so many times. Number 16. Next, endgame length is quite important, and I think that having 3 raid tiers is a very good balance. It means the expansion's pace does not feel rushed, and it allows for gearing to feel more meaningful as the eventual expansion gear reset is a bit further off. Narratively, of course, having more time is generally a very good thing. It allows for characters to be more fleshed out, and perhaps more importantly, allows for them to add more settings and locations to an expansion, just like how Mists of Pandaria was able to offer something pretty different with patch 5.2. Number 15. Having multiple raids per tier is also a pretty fantastic thing. It means less bosses are gated behind other bosses, and it allows for more freedom. It's also great for people with little time, as they can be just quick little bite-sized bits of content that have a relevant difficulty level. They are great for pugging too, as the perceived time sink of doing, say, an Ixia's Lair is very, very low. They were one of the reasons, combined with 10-player difficulty, that pugging was so strong in Wrath of the Lich King. Overall, it means that basically more people can get into raiding, and it's a great way to encourage people to do so without showing them the whole raid on derp mode and pretty much spoiling the feeling of actual progression. Number 14. Next, let's cover Endgame Storytelling. Patch 5.1 and 5.2 made great advances with storytelling, but unfortunately, Warlords did not push the boat. The Garrison campaign was given to people rather than being earned, and it was also random, meaning that the story did not feel coherent. In the next expansion, I would like what is essentially a really souped up version of the Legendary quest without the grinding. Lots of quest content basically would take place in the world, and you would have loads of things like the Celestial Trial or the Kairos fight that have a little bit of difficulty. It would involve going around the dungeons as well. But essentially just imagine the Warlord's Legendary, no grinding stones or anything like that. Instead, you're out in the world, you're killing solo bosses, you're taking names, you're doing hard quests, and you're actually earning something. On top of this, I would also have reputations which, like the Mists of Pandaria ones, contain story quests. Number 13. Solo difficulty is another aspect of the game that's really important to me. This expansion would place an emphasis on having challenging endgame solo content. Sometimes you just want to chill out on your own, you don't want to worry about other people, but you still want to play a good game where the mechanics matter. Scripted content in this expansion would have mechanics that matter. It would reward success and give not that much for failure. Difficulty would of course come from mechanics rather than white swing damage, so the gear would play a diminished role, and really it's about dealing with the mechanics. It's about interrupting something, moving out of something, bouncing Kairos' ball, something like that really involves a bit of individual difficulty. Not only do I think that can make more fun and allow for Blizzard to make some really cool encounters, but it also acts as soft training for raiding, which is probably a good thing. Number 12. Class quests are also something that are really good for a role-playing game, and this somewhat does tie into the solo difficulty point. I love the idea of class quests, and we get a precious few of them. The Warlock one was fantastic, and the Hunters have got some cool pet taming challenges here and there, but bar those examples, they have really dropped the ball on this. It's a big topic and I'm already planning a video on it, but essentially I would have lots of things like Felrangari and Ara, like Canrathed, essentially a way of providing quests which give hard solo encounters which are all based around the mechanics of the class that you're actually playing. I'm more interested in bringing the cool encounters rather than having massive big scenarios that are really intricate, because they do take quite a lot of time to make, and considering these are only going to be for one class, I think it's best that it's more of a quest system and maybe the odd scenario rather than something truly massive like what was done with the Warlock stuff. Number 11. Also, player housing is not a doomed concept. However, I do place it lower on the totem pole than, say, world content. I think that player housing should allow for lots of customization and lots of unlocks, so that it's more a focus on self-expression and having a physical representation of one's achievements. They would have very little utility, so that cities would still be populated. And hell, they could even be in an instanced district of each city. What if they rebuilt the Park District and people can get a plot of land in there and you build something cool? I recommend having a bit of a look at the Star Wars The Old Republic and actually the RuneScape housing systems, because they're both interesting for similar reasons. Number 10. Character customization is also something that they could make a lot of use out of. During the 14-month Warlords of Draenor wait, they showed off the class accessory system, whereby you could unlock new cosmetic items, basically things like quivers for hunters and holy tombs for paladins. These would be a great layer on top of Transmog that would pair excellently with the class quest system. Number 9. Reputations are also important, and they were gutted in Warlords of Draenor, but the devs have admitted that they pendulumed too hard on that issue. Reps can make for great bits of optional content which contain unique story and some cool rewards. Hopefully more in terms of unique mounts, pets, and transmog sets rather than the likes of gear. Having reps allow them to explore the world through the factions that live in it, and that's a powerful storytelling and world building mechanic. This is another way to really emphasize the RPG element of World of Warcraft that has been lacking as of late. Content-wise, they could make some small improvements. Firstly, reaching a new rep level would give you a big bit of a story quest, and it would also result in a fully different set of daily quests, i.e. you would not be repeating content from the past rep level. Having unique rewards rather than reskins also really matters. If Netherwing gave us a reskinned Griffin, no one would care, but they had a unique reward which fitted their lore, and that is really what mattered and made that feel like its own unique thing, rather than just, oh, these are the Arakoa, but apparently they ride boars. Huh? That makes no sense. Now, after the initial gear rush and dungeoning is done, reps can offer people something optional to do that's driven by personal desire, both to see the faction unfold and also get a unique reward that's more cosmetic. It's something that lasts beyond that initial gearing process and can give an expansion some longevity. Number 8. Next, I wouldn't mind an LFR overhaul. I don't think anyone finishes an LFR wing and they're really pumped and full of excitement. The gameplay is just shit. If Blizzard really wants to allow people to see this content without a raid, then they should at least make it fun. Star Wars The Old Republic has a system where you can essentially solo a raid along with a few NPCs. From what I gather, this has allowed them to have relevant difficulty for that content and actually deliver a good gameplay experience. But still, Blizzard is a smart company. They can do better than the current state of LFR. Number 7. Another thing that I would like is traditional legendaries. Old ones, they were legendary. The new ones, not legendary at all. The concerns about guilds and recruitment are, as far as I'm concerned, a bit overblown, and I think if legendaries are properly legendary, then they should be rare and they should matter. They could have big, long quests like some of the previous ones did, and overall be a really special thing in the game. Right now, I think the current legendary system honestly sucks the life out of the game. And 100 bro, please. Number 6. I also think the old world should be relevant. How? Well, having quests which would send you back there would be quite nice, perhaps more if it was part of a class or legendary quest. I would also like to have zone-wide events that could happen in the old world. This would be a really cool way of creating a big server-wide event that would bring people together and maybe give some cool one-off rewards for 1 or 2 weekends. Having world bosses in places that is maybe not the current expansion would also perhaps be kind of cool if they did it right. Stuff like, say, the dragon bosses that were around during vanilla. Number 5. I'd like for something similar to VP or JP to return. Valor Points kept lots of content relevant throughout an expansion, which kept queue times down and gave people something to do. If you were raiding, then attending your raid would always mean a bit of character progression through the VP that you would earn. Now, Mythic Dungeons could also help to keep that dungeon difficulty engaging throughout the expansion, meaning that having VP on dungeons wouldn't be as sort of eventually pointless, like how it was in MoP, where the dungeons could basically be soloed by anyone with extreme ease. Of course, the Valor Point system was from a decent amount of time ago, and Blizzard could definitely improve it. Finally, converting all Justice Points rewards into gold rewards removed a lot of the motivation behind specific bits of content, which is perhaps unfortunate and maybe has led to less longevity. Number 4. On the PvP front, I would like something similar to Wintergrasp, where there are both strong PvP and PvE elements, but unlike Ashran, those elements would be separate. Wintergrasp worked great because everyone had good reason to care about it. There was also causality. If you won, you actually got something, and that was a nice feeling. Something that was a little bit wider than just a few points. I would also like some new battlegrounds. Hopefully things with more innovative mechanics like, say, Hutball from Star Wars The Old Republic, and also no RNG conquest loot, because that shit is just beyond dumb. Number 3. Now that many of the core mechanic things are covered, I just want to talk about the theme. Personally, I would really like the South Seas theme. It's got Zhara, it's got the Xantalari, and it's also got the Old Gods as potential enemies, so that's a good bit of variation. It would also be a fresh color palette, and there are so many islands and things like that out there that you could really make those zones feel different. Being back on Azeroth with no alternate universe bullshit would be a really nice thing as well, and I would love it if maybe they could sneak some sort of like cool personal customizable boat into this that you could sail around the place, but only if they could make it fun. As much as a Legion invasion or us invading the Legion would be fun, I think we've already seen enough of them for 6.2 and could do with a little bit of a break. Number 2. Time for the most snarky point in this list. I think they need to hire writers. I'm pretty sure that WoW's quality of writing is so god-awful terrible because the scripts that are given to the voice actors are written by the people who make the lore, i.e. not professional writers who have learned that craft. The writing feels self-indulgent, cringeworthy, and completely amateurish. There are loads of great, talented writers out there who could help Blizzard craft an in-game story that befits the excellent lore that they have established. But they just don't. They continue to have bad writing and bad voice direction, with only a rare few actually being good, the likes of Khadgar Gul'dan, and perhaps Tyrion and the Lich King, though some of their lines are a little bit shaky as well. Seriously, there is no excuse for Yrel. Really, no one talks like that. It's just stupid. Number 1. Next, I want to quickly cover rewards. Of course, this is a far larger discussion, but I think that rewards are quite messed up in the game currently. First of all, they put a lot of player power things on bits of content like the Garrison that honestly shouldn't really have them. This results in some content undercutting other bits of content, which makes the potentially more fun content, like dungeons, kind of irrelevant. There should be less in the way also of randomized gear tokens like the Tanane Pexis system. These make gear feel really expendable, and they are part of a clear RNG loot treadmill that honestly just sucks the fun out of gearing up a character. It makes gear feel so throwaway, and it's just not something that really feels like it's a part of an RPG. It feels more like an iOS game or something. Bits of content that are not dungeons, raids, world content, or PvP, I don't think they should offer powerful bits of gear. Instead, Blizzard should double down on the idea of class accessories, cosmetic sets, and convenience items. They are really cool rewards that befit bits of optional content like achievements, systems like the farm or the garrison, or perhaps reputations, things that are optional in respect to the actual main gearing process. So there you have it, that is roughly what I would like to see fixed or tweaked in the next expansion. You've probably noticed that not a lot of it is super exciting new bits of completely new ideas. The reason for that is because I think what they need to focus on is making the game really good and really fun and have longevity at its core. I think that the last few years have eroded at the core of what makes World of Warcraft, well, good. It's eroded at what makes it a good RPG. I think once that stuff is fixed, then they will have a good base to add new systems and really explore and do interesting things. Anyway, that's it for me. Let me know what you would like to see down in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.